Dear Gurudev, and thank you for joining us today. So again, today we have with us an art of being expert and an officer of the Vedic Dharma Sansthan. So Gurudev began by saying that when you play mantras, you not only increase energy, you also lift a natural emotion. How do mantras elevate both energy and emotion simultaneously? Jagadev, mantras are not mere sounds, they are energetic codes. When Gurudev says mantras lift a natural emotion, he points to the way vibration works on the subtlest levels of the mind and body. Each syllable of a mantra, particularly when chanted with awareness, aligns the nervous system with the cosmic rhythm. This lifts emotions from the mundane to the sacred, anger transforms into dynamism, sadness into devotion. The energy component refers to prana shakti, the vital life force that gets activated through chanting. The repetition of mantras like Om Namah Shivaya or Gayatri creates coherent vibrations that harmonize brain waves, leading to calm alertness. In Art of Living, this principle underlies group chanting and satsang's emotion becomes purified, energy becomes refined. When Gurudev says, you increase energy, he reminds us that sound vibration bridges matter and consciousness. Mantras thus act as psychoacoustic bridges between the finite and the infinite, lifting a natural emotional field into the domain of higher awareness. Now, the discourse uses the metaphor of light to describe awareness and energy. How should we understand this comparison? The light in Vedic symbolism represents Chaitanya, the illuminating consciousness. Just as a lamp reveals the room, awareness reveals existence. Gurudev's metaphor: when there is a little light, you do not see much. When there is more, you see everything. Teaches that consciousness expands in gradations. Limited awareness corresponds to limited perception. As spiritual energy increases, the antarpraksha or inner light reveals subtler realities. In ritual and meditation, we invoke a deeper jyoti before any practice. It's not just symbolic, it is metaphysical. The flame represents the awakened Agni within. As the light brightens, so too does the intellect, intuition, and perception. Gurudev bridges this ancient imagery with experiential spirituality. More energy equals more light, which equals more vision. When Kundalini Shakti ascends, awareness naturally brightens. Thus, energy and light are one continuum, two expressions of the same divine radiance. Now, Gurudev spoke about the need for Shakti and said, if you don't see the wife, you need Shakti. What does this signify spiritually? Yeah, this is Gurudev's playful yet profound way of showing that Shakti, the divine feminine energy, is the active principle of creation. Wife here is symbolic of the manifest energy of the universe. If you only see the static speed, the room, the matter, and not the living presence that animates it, you are missing Shakti. Without Shakti, life becomes mechanical. The universe, though full of form, lacks vibrancy unless energized by consciousness. The art of living practices bring this realization experientially through breath, sound, and meditation. One begins to see energy in everything. Gurudev is reminding us that matter is inert, energy is its soul. To live without awareness of Shakti is to live half awake. Recognizing Shakti is awakening to the Divine Mother, the source of creativity, intuition, and dynamic balance. Now, Gurudev said, you don't need this room to be light. The beginning of light matters. What is meant by the beginning of light? Together in Vedic cosmology, creation begins with Jyoti, the primordial spark. The beginning of light refers to the first awareness that arises from stillness. Before any manifestation, there is a subtle ignition of consciousness. The Adi Jyoti Gurudeva parallels this to our own spiritual awakening. We don't need external conditions, the room to have light. What we need is the ignition within awareness dawning in the heart. In Sandhya Vandanam, this is expressed as Asatoma Sadagamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Lead me from darkness to light. Once that initial spark appears, perception expands exponentially. Even a flicker of awareness can dispel lifetimes of ignorance. The beginning of light is the rebirth of spiritual seeing. When the drashta awakens within the seeker. Now, Gurudev emphasized that mantras not only increase energy but also make you see more. How does chanting alter perception? Jayadev, chanting changes perception because it alters brainwave frequencies and harmonizes both hemispheres. In advanced meditation studies at Harvard and Stanford, it's been observed that repetitive sound patterns produce synchronized alpha and theta states, the same states associated with creativity and expanded perception. Gurudev's statement means that mantras act as lenses that refine our awareness. When energy is scattered, perception is clouded, but as chanting collects the prana, it sharpens inner sight. This is why during satsang, people often experience deep clarity, visions, or intuitive insights. Mantras make perception multidimensional, free from seeing with the eyes to perceiving with the soul. In essence, chanting dissolves the barrier between seer and seen, enabling one to experience the universe as a continuum of vibrating consciousness. Now, Gurudev mentioned chakra. Guru's presence, all of it increases energy. How do chakras and Guru's presence work together? The chakras are psychoenergetic centers governing both physiological and spiritual processes. The Guru's presence acts like the sun to these energy centers, just as the sun activates photosynthesis in a dormant seed. The Guru Tattva activates latent energy within the seeker. Gurudev's presence is a living field of coherence. When one sits in his vibration, the chakras align spontaneously, particularly the Anahat or the heart chakra and the Agya or the third eye centers awaken through grace, not effort. In Vedic initiation, the Diksha, this transmission, is known as a Shakti part, a direct awakening of energy by a realized being. This practice of the chakra sadhana and praise of the Guru's energy are complementary. One prepares the vessel, the other fills it with divine nectar. Now, Gurudev referred to Kundalini and then to Parabrahma Kundalini. What is the distinction between the two? Jagadev, Kundalini is the individual energy residing at the base of the spine, the potential of consciousness in the human system. The Parabrahma Kundalini is universal energy, the cosmic consciousness from which individual Kundalini emerges. Gurudev reveals that the so called Kundalini awakening is not just a physical or energetic phenomenon, it is the realization that the personal and universal energies are one. When Kundalini rises, perception shifts from I am the body to I am the field of awareness. Parabrahma Kundalini is not confined, it is the infinite, undivided energy of creation itself. Now, thus, the rise of Kundalini is symbolic of merging into the cosmic current when the wave recognizes itself as the ocean. Now, what does Gurudev mean when he says the whole universe, they are, and energy is distributed in the entire universe? This is a profound statement on the non dualistic nature of reality. Gurudev is paraphrasing the Vedantic truth that energy or the Shakti and consciousness or Shiva pervade everything. The universe is not made of dead matter, it is a living, pulsating field of awareness. Every atom is a temple, every vibration an expression of the divine. The distribution of energy across the universe is what sustains order, rhythm, and evolution. Rita, in ritual terms, every Agni, every prana, every mantra is connected to the universal energy web. Gurudev simplifies this ancient insight by saying it's not somewhere up there, it is here, distributed, living, and conscious. Now, Gurudev described the chief Kundalini as joy, serenity, equanimity, meditation. How do these qualities represent energy? Jai Gurudev, in Gurudev's teaching, true energy is not restlessness, it is centered dynamism. The chief Kundalini expresses as Ananda or joy, Shanti or serenity, and Samvatva or equanimity. These are the natural states when the life force flows unobstructed. Meditation stabilizes energy. It's not suppression but sublimation. When Kundalini rises harmoniously, the nervous system experiences bliss, not turbulence. Joy becomes spontaneous, serenity becomes the background, and equanimity becomes strength. The Gurudev calls this the chief Kundalini because it governs the higher evolution of human consciousness beyond sensory stimulation into the domain of spiritual radiance. How can one practically increase energy as Gurudev advises? Gurudev, energy increases through disciplined alignment of body, breath, and awareness. The Sharira and the Prana and the Chitta in Vedic and yogic practice. This includes pranayama, asana, dhyana, and sankalpa. The art of Vivingsha Sudarshan Kriya is a scientific way of balancing prana, purifying nadis, and amplifying vitality. Chanting, seva, and satsang also increase energy because they dissolve the egoic blockages that waste prana. Gurudev's formula is simple: meditate daily, eat sattvic food, serve selflessly, and stay connected to the Guru's presence. When energy is refined, it naturally manifests as clarity, compassion, and creativity, the hallmarks of spiritual maturity. Jai Gurudev, so what does Gurudev mean by Parabrahma Kundalini? Gurudev refers to Parabrahma Kundalini as the primal energy that is both the lowest and the master of all energies. It is the root, the energy of existence itself. When this energy awakens, it brings qualities like discipline, determination, compassion, and teamwork. It is the aspect of Kundalini that connects individual consciousness to the cosmic will. It's not merely a physiological rise of energy up the spine, rather, it is the awakening of awareness that propels one toward unity with the Parabrahman, the supreme consciousness. In Vedic interpretation, the Parabrahma Kundalini corresponds to the Muladhara Shakti, imbued with divine intelligence, the Brahma Chaitanya. The term lowest does not signify inferiority but origin, just as roots lie beneath but does sustain the tree. The Parabrahma Kundalini sustains all movement and evolution. It is that divine base which, when activated through meditation, service, and devotion, expands upward to merge with Sahasrara, completing the journey of the self from matter to spirit. Now, Gurudev says the Parabrahma Kundalini gives a determination, discipline, friendship, and mercy. How do these manifest in spiritual practice? Jagadav, these are not moral qualities imposed by will, they are natural outflows of awakened energy. When the Parabrahma Kundalini rises gently, one feels an inner order, a spontaneous discipline, and kindness. You no longer have to force yourself to be good. Goodness becomes effortless, the mind becomes structured like a musical raga, balanced, sensitive, and harmonious. The sculptures and the scripture says, Yata Kundalini Jagrati Tata Dharmam Paravartate. When Kundalini awakens, Dharma begins to act through you. Mercy or Karuna and friendship or Maitri and discipline or Niyama are signs that once his energy is being directed upward rather than scattered outward. In the Gurukul traditions, this transformation is seen as divine grace rather than human effort. The awakening itself becomes the teacher. Now, Gurudev mentions that the Parabrahma Kundalini gives the feeling of feedback and satisfaction. What is this experience like? During deep meditation or Sudarshan Kriya, practitioners may feel a subtle vibration or a sense of fullness. This is not imagination but energetic feedback, the nervous system registering higher coherence. That satisfaction is ananda or the bliss arising from energy alignment. In tantric terms, this is spanda, the pulse of the universe perceived within. When the kundalini begins to awaken, there is a gentle pulsation, sometimes felt as a coolness, warmth, or inner light. The feedback Gurudev speaks of is the self becoming aware of itself. The Atma Pratyaya, satisfaction arises because consciousness recognizes its own source. Now, Gurudev differentiates between Parabrahma Kundalini and the chief Kundalini. How are they distinct? The Parabrahma Kundalini is the base, the root of consciousness. The chief Kundalini, as Gurudev says, is like a shower of moonlight, soft, surrounding, and expansive. It's not localized, it permeates the aura. The Parabrahma is the ignition, the chief Kundalini is the illumination. In Vedic cosmology, the Parabrahma Kundalini relates to Kundalini Shakti, while the chief Kundalini aligns with Chaitanya Shakti. The former moves within, the latter radiates without. Parabrahma Kundalini transforms the self, Chief Kundalini transforms the environment. One who carries a Chief Kundalini uplifts the others merely by presence. Now, Gurudev says the Chief Kundalini feels like a shower of light, like a moonlight. What is the symbolism behind this? Moonlight represents calmness and cooling energy, the Chandranadi activation. When one's meditation deepens, energy ceases to burn and begins to soothe. The person becomes radiant, peaceful, and non reactive. This is the hallmark of a chief Kundalini. The Rig Veda describes the moon as a mind's essence, the Chandra Mamar Manaso Chataha. Thus, moonlight here symbolizes the purified mind, reflecting divine consciousness. The shower of light is a descending grace. When the cosmic energy envelops the practitioner, it is cooling because it removes the excess heat generated during initial awakening, balancing Agni and Soma within. Now, Gurudev notes that during awakening, some people may shake or experience physical movement. How should one interpret this? Physical tremors can occur when dense energy is released. Gurudev often reassures that these are temporary cleansing effects. The nervous system adjusts to a higher voltage. However, these movements are not the goal. Stability and silence are. In Kundalini Tantra. Such phenomena are called kriyas. They are spontaneous movements of prana adjusting the channels or nadis. The scriptures caution that one must be under the guidance of a realized master. Without guidance, the same energy that liberates can disturb balance. That is why Gurudev emphasizes meditation in a protected spiritual field, the Sangha. Now, Gurudev warns that Parabrahma Kundalini carries risks of mental reduction. What does that mean? Gurudev refers to the danger of premature awakening without purification. If the base energy is forced upward through intense practices, it can overwhelm the nervous system, leading to imbalance or delusion. The intellect must first be refined through knowledge and service. Vedic texts call this apatapapta yoga, untempered awakening. The mental reduction means a loss of discrimination or viveka. The person becomes energy intoxicated but wisdom deficient. Hence, Gurudev refers and prefers the gentle rise through meditation, devotion, and breath work rather than extreme tapas. Now, why does Gurudev prefer the chief Kundalini over Parabrahma Kundalini for practitioners? The chief Kundalini is self regulating. It awakens only as much energy as one's consciousness can handle. It unfolds gracefully, promoting balance rather than intensity. Gurudev always says spirituality should make you more natural, not more strange. Chief Kundalini aligns with Para Prakriti, the higher nature. Its awakening is guided by divine intelligence rather than personal effort. It is the path of a surrender where the Guru's energy uplifts you. The seeker doesn't climb where grace descends. Now, how does the energy transform one's relationships and teamwork, as Gurudev mentions? Parabrahma Kundalini brings unity consciousness. You start feeling others as extensions of yourself. Conflicts dissolve. Naturally, teamwork becomes effortless because energy moves collectively, not competitively. In Yajurveda, energy is described as Sangachatvam Samvadatvam. Let us move together, speak together. This verse mirrors what Gurudev expresses. Kundalini awakening in groups harmonizes the collective prana, leading to shared intuition and compassion. The Gurudev says the energy just transforms you into another beyond Parabrahma Kundalini. What lies beyond it? Jagada, beyond Parabrahma Kundalini is pure consciousness or the Turiya. It's not energy but awareness, silent, vast, all encompassing. When you reach there, there is no movement and no rise or fall, only being. In Vedanta, this state is Parabrahma Tattva, where Shakti and Shiva are one. Beyond energy lies essence. Energy is dynamic, essence is still. That stillness is liberation or moksha. Jagadev, so what is Parabrahma Kundalini as mentioned by His Holiness Gurudev Shri Shri Ravi Shankarji in this discourse? Parabrahma Kundalini, as explained by Gurudev, is not merely an energy at the base of the spine, but the supreme consciousness itself, the union of the individual and universal energy. While ordinary Kundalini refers to the life force dormant within us, the Parabrahma Kundalini represents the awakening of awareness that transcends individuality. It's the moment when the microcosm and the macrocosm recognize their inseparability. Gurudev says it is the lowest in the master. The paradox shows that the root of our being, our very base, is also the seat of supreme intelligence. When it awakens, balance between body and consciousness is established, but the transition can be intense. Many experience energy surges, emotional waves, or moments of deep hollowness because the old layers of identity are being shed. Only when the practitioner remains centered through Sudarshan Kriya, meditation, and devotion does this energy become stabilizing rather than disturbing. Why does Gurudev call the problem of Parabrahma Kundalini critical? Because Parabrahma Kundalini is not an energy one can manage with willpower, it is divine intelligence in motion. When this awakens without proper grounding, or guidance, the individual's nervous system and subtle body may struggle to integrate the surge. Gurudev warns that this experience can create moments of imbalance or confusion. A person may feel hollow or detached, unable to make sense of what is happening. In Vedic texts like the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad and Hatha Yoga Pradipika, similar states are described as Unmanavastha, a threshold between duality and oneness. Gurudev's approach, rooted in Sri Sri Yoga and Pranayama, ensures that this awakening happens safely, harmoniously, and gradually. The critical aspect refers to the sensitivity required. Without humility and surrender, the energy could stagnate at certain chakras, leading to agitation or illusion. Thus, Gurudev insists on grace, practice, and guidance as the three pillars of progress. Now, Gurudev mentions that people often feel hollows, down, or distracted during this process. What does that mean spiritually? The feeling of being hollowed down is symbolic. It's not a depression but a purification of the subtle sheet. When Kundalini arises and the rises, the mind's habitual attachments and impressions lose grip. The individual experiences a gap, a vacuum where old patterns dissolve but new clarity hasn't yet stabilized. Gurudev often describes this as the space between two thoughts becoming vast. This hollowness is sacred, it's where silence births wisdom. However, without understanding, people mistake it for emptiness or loss. That is why guided meditation and satsang are essential to fill that space with devotion or bhakti rather than confusion. In Ayurveda and yogic psychology, this corresponds to the Vata principle movement, subtlety, expansion, proper diet, rhythmic breathing, and rounding activities help stabilize it. The hollowness is, in truth, the first sign that consciousness is expanding beyond material identity. Now, Gurudev says that this energy sometimes causes jerking or floating sensations. Are these physical or metaphysical phenomena? Both these sensations occur because the pranic currents or vayus are being reorganized. Gurudev beautifully compares it to the jerking upon of subtle energy. When the dormant Shakti awakens, it pierces the granthis, the knots of karma and ignorance located along the spinal channel or the sushumna. The jerks or tremors indicate movement of energy through these knots. Floating sensations arise when the prana rises rapidly, reducing the sense of gravity or physical weight. Ancient scriptures mention this as Laghima Siddhi. However, Gurudev cautions seekers not to get fascinated by these experiences. They are side effects, not spiritual achievements. With regular practice of Sudarshan Kriya and grounding meditation, the energy harmonizes and becomes a fountain of bliss rather than a source of distraction. Now, why does Gurudev emphasize that such an experience will not necessarily give you the next level? Because energy alone is not enlightenment, Gurudev reminds us that even profound spiritual phenomenon can become ego traps if the awareness behind them is immature. Many feel ecstatic energy movements and assume realization, but that's like mistaking lightning for the sun. True awakening requires the stilling of the mind and recognition of the infinite self or the Atman behind all energy. The next level is all about stronger sensations, but about stability, compassion, and expanded awareness. Gurudev often says, don't chase experiences, let the experiences chase you. Only through surrender, seva, and wisdom can the energy become Parabrahma, the boundless consciousness. Thus, the experience becomes integrated into daily life, manifesting as equanimity, joy, and selfless action. Now, Gurudev refers to the possibility of Kundalini getting stuck in one place. What does this signify? Jagadiv, when Gurudev says the energy can be kept stuck, he points to the stagnation of consciousness at certain levels of understanding or emotional attachment. The Kundalini symbolically passes through chakras, each representing a layer of human evolution. If desires, fears, or unresolved emotions dominate a chakra, energy cannot ascend further. For instance, attachment at the anahata or the heart level can keep one trapped in emotional dependency. Gurudev's methods, particularly Sudarshan Kriya and Sahat Samadhi meditation, and satsang and seva help clear these blocks. The stuck state may also be karmic, requiring patience and grace. As Gurudev mentions, you cannot do anything about it, it happens on its own. That means only through surrender to the divine flow can one transcend these limitations. In essence, the energy rises not by effort, but by surrender and purity of intent. Now, Gurudev hints that realization may take many lifetimes. Why does he say so if enlightenment is said to be here and now? Gurudev reconciles both views beautifully. Enlightenment is always available now, but the readiness to perceive it may take lifetimes. The subtle impressions or samskaras accumulated over many births obscure awareness like dust covering a mirror. Practices like meditation, seva, and devotion clean that mirror gradually. When Gurudev says it may take lifetimes to get a glimpse, he emphasizes patience and humility. However, the moment grace dawns, realization is instantaneous, a fraction of a second, as he puts it. The paradox is that the infinite is always present, yet our nervous system and psyche must evolve to hold that frequency. Hence, the journey continues until one becomes completely hollow and empty. Then the Parabrahma reveals itself effortlessly. Now, what does Gurudev mean when he says you cannot do anything about it? Is it a sheer blessing? This is a declaration of divine humility. Gurudev dismantles the ego's illusion of control. The rise of Parabrahma Kundalini is not an achievement but a benediction. It cannot be engineered through will, ritual, or austerity. It happens through grace or anugraha. In the Shiva Sutras, it is said, Udyamo Bhairava. The spontaneous surge of awareness is the divine itself. The best a seeker can do is prepare the ground through purity, practice, and service so that grace finds a home. When Gurudev says, You cannot stray from it, he implies that once awakened, the divine current will guide the soul inevitably toward liberation. No external effort can hasten or delay what divine intelligence has ordained. How can seekers differentiate between the Kundalini awakening and mere emotional or mental euphoria? A genuine awakening transforms one's life, not just one's mood. Emotional highs may mimic a spiritual ecstasy, but they fade quickly and often lead to exhaustion. True Kundalini awakening, guided by grace, brings clarity, compassion, fearlessness, and contentment. Gurudev says, if it is real, it makes you natural. The energy harmonizes the five sheaths or kushas, the body, breath, mind, intellect, and bliss, so that one becomes stable and joyous without dependence on circumstances. Sudarshan Priyasa's rhythm prepares the system for this balance by oxygenating and synchronizing the pranic flows. In contrast, unregulated practices or ego driven experiments can disturb mental equilibrium. The hallmark of authenticity is effortless awareness and deep inner silence, not excitement but peace. Now, Gurudev connects the Parabrahma Kundalini to the whole universe. What does this cosmic connection mean? Jagadev and Gurudeva says one must imagine a whole universe. He invites seekers to transcend the limited sense of I. The Kundalini is not separate from creation, it is the microcosmic expression of the universal creative power or the Mahashakti. In Vedic philosophy, Parabrahma is both eminent and transcendent, the very consciousness from which galaxies arise. When this realization dawns, the seeker perceives the same pulsation of life in stars, rivers, and breath. The individual energy merges into the cosmic current, erasing boundaries of self and other. This is why Gurudev calls it the Parabrahma Kundalini, the energy of the absolute, not just the body. It's an awakening where one becomes aware. I am part of the vast universe, and the universe is a part of me, Jagudev.